Hi, guys and ladies. Welcome back to another exciting episode. My name is Dissect. We are in episode number 18 of the Being an Analyst podcast. On this episode, we're extending our conversation from episode number 17. We are asking how could we fund for the SMME e-commerce digitalization. Remember on episode number 17, we were talking about is South Africa ready? Is South African informal market ready for 4IR? This one we are continuing to say, if it is ready, how could we fund for the informal market adoption of 4IR? That's what we are discussing just after the theme song. Stay tuned. It goes without saying that as much as currently we're still experiencing a very, very high closure rate of small businesses, SMMEs still don't make it past the first year. It's reported that currently still about 90% of businesses, small businesses that start, do not actually see their first anniversary. Those that make it through their first anniversary do not see their fifth year or the 10th year. So it's only about less than 1% that actually get to be older than 10 years. Now, what we're asking here is to say, hang on a second, is it possible that digitalizing, not just for the payment, but creating an e-commerce solution that actually looks at products being listed and it also looks at payment being accepted, as much as operational efficiencies, creating that platform, will it help with keeping the doors of a business open? We are lucky because that question I was able to answer in my dissertation, where I actually looked at internet adoption and I looked at economical growth. I found correlation between the two. And the sub question was to say, hang on a second, now what happens to businesses that were open in seven years year one? They were both physical and digital. And what happens when it comes to year two? Few businesses that we looked at later, we realized that the e-commerce solution was the one that was making the business sustainable after they've closed the door. They might have closed the door because they ran out of money. They might have closed the door because of whatever opportunity that didn't come to them. Maybe they listed that they are preferred vendor for enterprise development partnership or vendoring. Maybe they might have done that. But in year two, their success or their business continuity becomes highly reliant on the e-commerce solution that they've created. So within that small sample, we can now realize that, oh, hang on a second, there is a correlation between taking not just digitalizing in a sense that there's an e-commerce solution or optimization solution. That digitalization can help make the small business sustainable over the 1 year period. So if that's the case, we have a case. How can these small businesses actually go ahead and get digitalized? The nice part about it is there's a lot of big organizations that have created very, very nice program incubations where small companies can go there and then they can start to get digitalized in this sense. But just like we said, because it's an initiative by one of the big companies, by most big companies, I meant to say, it is not everyone that could make it through that rigorous application process. So those that make it, yes, they can make it. We have very, very good examples of nice apps that were created, and others went to be acquired, like the Carry app. But others really do not get that benefit. They are part of the incubation process program, but they don't get to scale up. Meant to say. But because of that, now the question that we asked ourselves is, can digitalization into e-commerce and for our efficiencies, can it happen outside of the big business initiative? If we're looking at that one, we actually say, can small businesses be able to digitalize each other? In a sense that we don't have to wait for a big business to create an initiative to say, hang on a second, we're going to be empowering 20 small businesses with going to having an e-commerce solution, but rather can small businesses club together and say, we're going to digitalize each other? Then for that, we realized that we got a yes for that question. We got a yes because of the following factors. There was a lot of small businesses that were created to actually offer websites and offer social media presence and all of those things to hype people up, to create efficiencies where you do stuff on the app so that the services could be delivered. But we realized that as soon as those businesses are in play, they also suffer the same fate as any other small business itself. They still battle to go up that 1 year mark. Of course, the people that are running those businesses are like you and I. We still have expenses to pay, we get responsibilities to look at, and the business expenses just becomes another burden on top of that. So having to go up beyond that 1 year mark really means that you need to be liquid. You need to have some cash flow in there. So small businesses, yes, they can be able to help digitalize or create e-commerce solutions for other small businesses, which is for other SMMEs, but they still have the same failure rate or same success rate, which is 90% of those might not see first year. So imagine we queue up all the businesses, 100 of those. We like, come, go to December, we'll be able to digitalize you, only to realize that I've closed my doors a year ago because I just couldn't sustain. So all of this that we have worked for would have been, wasted. So the first question, small businesses can, but they need money to sustain. Now, the sub question that we're asking there is, where would the money come from to help small SMMEs that digitalize each other to remain operational? In that case, let's have a look at another source of funding. I'm going to avoid loans, which is from traditional banks, but I'm going to look at the type of funding that's called alternative funding, if I may use that word. That's coming from angel investors, coming from crowdfunding, coming from venture capitalists, it's coming from all of those alternative sources. Now, when we looked at this issue, we realized that yes, there is a lot of money that can come from these people, venture capitalists, crowdfunding, you name them, but they don't have SMME digitalization or e-commerce funding. What they have is, if I come over and I say I'm creating t-shirts or I'm creating shoes, what they're asking for is for stake, for portion of the equity into your business. So if you're coming over, you say, listen, I met with the guys. They said they're gonna create a wonderful e-commerce solution for me, but it's gonna cost us 300,000 because it's five guys. They are looking at 50,000 each for the project for 3 months, say for instance, and another one is for whatever infrastructure that they'll be using. That's the 300,000 straight. I need to raise that money. What they say is, hang on a second, show us your product. Is there going to be enough people who's going to want this product? If yes, then they want stake in your company. We've seen that with Dragon Den, Dragon's Shark Tank, and some of the stuff that are happening on entrepreneurial TV. If you are privileged to be watching entrepreneurial TV, I mean, it's just 24 hours of just people pitching in there, just showing you how to pitch and how not to pitch. But all they are looking for is for a stake. And at that time, we didn't see um, those funds that has got a special digitalization fund, meaning you'll be able to come with your business and say, hang on a second, I want to create a solution for 300,000. I want to buy this equipment and I want to pay for this human resources. Can we club just for the project? And then both you or the vendor capitalist only share profits of that project. Currently, I couldn't identify those one quite easily. If there is, I stand to be corrected. But as far as we could see in our research, we couldn't find those. So all you could do when you go there, you sell a portion of your company. You say, for 40% of my company, can you give me 300,000 so that I can digitalize my operations and and put up the e-commerce solution. Another option that we looked at, because not everybody else is going to have a compelling case. Not all SMMEs are to be picked up by vendor capitalists, by angel investors, because sometimes it might just be your passion. You're just selling detergent, or you're just buying in bulk and you're repackaging in small pieces. And the venture capitalists might be saying, why would people buy from you? I mean, there's already proper products that they can buy from the store. But you identified your market to say, listen, I'm taking this thing by the border, and they cross the border quite nicely. And I got no hassles. But because of that you didn't package it nicely according to the vendor capitalists and angel investors and all those, you might not be able to get funding. So your digitalization might actually fail. Other one that we looked at was the development banks. We went into development financing now to say the development financiers, do they have a solution that can actually help out with digitalization of small businesses? They've identified the need for the infrastructure, and they identified the presence or the impact that 4IR is going to be making, especially in Africa. Now we say, hang on a second, let's not just talk about the infrastructure impact or the infrastructure bill. Can we talk about the digitalization? I mean, with the infrastructure, it's like you're creating a railroad, a railway road, and then with the digitalization, it's like now you're putting a train in operation to actually ferry all the people to and fro from different SMMEs. If I'm trying to make an analogy, so we're asking to say, as much as you're talking about the infrastructure development for 4IR, do you have funds to actually put the train in operation? The answer to that became, at the time that we were looking at the research, the answer to that was no. The development financiers didn't have a specialized digitalization budget or digitalization means. They had identified the need for telecommunication infrastructure, the need for all of those infrastructures, and getting the robotics into the country, all of those, and manufacturing of all of those. They've identified as critical and needs to be done. But for small businesses to be switched on into digitalization or e-commerce or operational efficiencies using technology, there hasn't been anything else. So in that case, it still needs some work. Nice part about development financiers is they don't charge as much as the banks. So you don't go around and you get charged 17% interest on there. Most of the time you get charged less. And I'll make an example with Gautrain a bit later. Okay. Now, from these three things, that's when we looked at it. And then later on, the last entrant that came recently was the Presidential Commission on 4IR. That was commissioned by President of South Africa. And it picked up 9 beautiful key recommendations. Unfortunately, the recommendation hasn't been put into place, all of them. Some has been done, but not everything. Now, when we look at those 9 recommendations, can we say exclusively that those recommendations were looking at the digitalization of small businesses and helping small businesses get digitalized? The answer is they were not small business focused. But those 9 recommendations were looking at what the country needs for it to take advantage of 4IR. For instance, they were looking at human capital, skill development. They're looking at infrastructure, like I said. They're looking at policies, and policy is quite important, and the law, especially when you have to talk about intellectual property rights, to say you are providing services to somebody else who's out of this country. Maybe I'm doing digital services, I'm selling a course, and I'm charging somebody else outside of the country. Now, when the return policy has to happen, who's supposed to be responsible for the return policy? Is it supposed to be us using South African law or not? Those are quite important things to look at when you're talking about digitalization, and that's exactly what the 4IR Commission was looking at, high level things. And in that case, I think they did very, very well. They did very, very well. And they have nice policies that can actually safeguard what small businesses will be going through if they want to be digitalized. also helped secure innovation on that side, that we can easily be able to innovate without feeling the pinch or without feeling otherwise. So in that case, it is helping in a non-finance sense, hence why I'm putting it just in the corner there, because whatever it comes to, the policy that comes to might increase the cost of digitalization, like if the laws are not put into play, if the people are not trained and stuff like that. So now what we're asking is, okay, if that is the case, now what should be done if that is the case? Then the answer to that one becomes, it seems like we might need a same project finance model that was used for Gautrain. I'm using Gautrain because most of the people that are in the Gauteng area and those that are outside the Gauteng area know very well how Gautrain operates. But maybe not everybody is familiar with how it was financed. So Gautrain was in one of those that came through, I think 2008, 2009, as a relationship, one of those BRICS things as they come up. It came perfectly between South African government and Brazil is it called locomotive manufacturer, Bobedil. I think it's called Bobedil. I might be saying it incorrectly. They came to create a partnership. The government knew that infrastructure need to be made, and it was quite expensive infrastructure. I think at one point it was budgeted at 1 billion, but we shot through the budget. We ended up doing, I think, quite more than that, way more than that, to do our Gautrain infrastructure, just tunneling, all of those things, geological work that needed to be done there. And Bombardier was also paid so that he can provide the locomotives, the trains that's going to be running there. So what happened is, after the project has been done, there there still needed to be operations happening in place. So instead of South African government operating Gautrain or Bombardier operating Gauteng, they created a new vehicle called Bombela. So this Bombela became a new um, company that was created not to pay for the cost of Gautrain infrastructure, but to make sure that Gautrain is sustainable. So it was just there for operational excellence or operational efficiencies, or just the operating part aspect of the train. So to date, I mean, from 2009 when it started operating until 2024, the Gautrain is still working quite well. The trains are still there, full capacity. I think there's no more other lines for the train to work on, meaning that it's working quite well. So when it started operations, although it cost, let's say it cost 3 billion to build the infrastructure, it didn't start with a 3 billion rand um, loan or debt. It started at zero, but it had the asset, but the asset didn't sit in Bombela's balance sheet. It sat in the balance sheet of South African government. So it's a South African government asset. Bombela, all he has to do is Bombela is to actually operate South African government asset, which is Gautrain. And all he has to do is just to pay for the people's salaries, make sure that the cleaning gets done, the toilets can flush, and all of that. And even the amount of money that we pay for the Gautrain, we don't pay money that covers the construction of the Gautrain or the cost of the trains. We only pay small amount of money so that we can only cover the operating costs of the train. I know Gautrain is quite expensive, and I'm saying that you might be thinking to yourself, huh? How's that so? But long story short about this Gautrain issue is, all I just want us to remember is that it's a vehicle that's used so that the government or whoever absorbs the cost, the financiers absorbs the cost of creating, while the cost of operation is the one that is taken care of by the users. So in this case, you have the SMMEs that are able to digitalize each other. Where they're going to get the money from? There's alternative financiers who might be having the money for promising ones. We have development financiers who's got the money, and we have 4IR policies to guide us with unemployment challenges, immigration of staff, 4IR vulnerabilities that we're looking at. And then now we're saying, in order to start digitalizing, we need to create a fifth element, which is a new vehicle for 4IR. We can call it 4IR funding or 4IR digitalization funding company or funding house. This funding house will be um, probably using the money that's coming from development financiers, the DBSA, African Development Bank, World Bank, you name it, PIC, you name it, whoever might be getting money from there, because that money comes cheaper. I mean, you even get like 50 or 100-year terms to pay with no interest. All this vehicle has to do, he has to go back to the recommendation of the 4IR, the Presidential Commission on 4IR, and do human capital investment, meaning that is teaching people how to digitalize small businesses, making sure that the whole list that we're running short of developers and analysts, we take that issue away. We need to have more developers, analysts, more people that can actually digitize small businesses so that your whole human capital recommendation that was done by the 4IR, making sure that the skilled people don't immigrate out of the country. This has to fund for that so that there's more people that can actually digitalize each other and also help after those people get reskilled. They are now part of this workforce that can be able to digitalize each other, meaning that they don't have to worry about am I gonna be out of a business because I need a loan to keep the lights on, to pay for database services, to pay for all of that should be taken care of by this vehicle. And then also, once the companies have been digitalized and they look promising, we digitalizing their research and development. Once research and development ticks, or we digitalizing their innovation. Once the innovation and research and development ticks, they are now looking lucrative to what? To the angel investors, venture capitalists, and them. So they're easy for acquisition. So you can now sell equity, not because you need to digitalize, you need a digital solution to help with e-commerce and operational efficiency, but you sell equity because now you want to realize the value of the business. So nobody's short charging you because you have a project. You pay for what it is, and the financiers are helping pump the money in here and absorbing some of the initial setup costs like infrastructure development, making sure that people are skilled, making sure that the education system is properly redesigned, making sure that there is proper collaboration between government, labor unions, and small businesses itself. All of that development financiers, 4IR, Presidential Commission on 4IR, all of those is their job to make sure that we protect this special vehicle that will be used just like we do with Bombela to operate the Gautrain. It will be used to operate this massive um, amount of this massive um, number of SMMEs that normally fail on their first year, but we're giving them a chance with e-commerce and digitalization, e-commerce and digital efficiencies through whatever 4IR is going to be offering, so that they can see their second and their third and their fourth birthday. So probably the target might be, instead of 90% of those disappearing in the first year, I mean, if we get 60% only disappearing in the first year, we already saved a lot of jobs just by implementing digitalization. Because instead of that heavy startup cost, I know it's not just rent, it's a lot of things. Hiring people that are expensive because they have to be physical, setting up banking stuff, making sure that the policies are in place, hiring a lawyer that you can't afford, all of those things, making sure that the setup cost is already being put in place. The business, even if 60% of those don't make the cut, we already improved heavily from the current 90% that don't make it to the second year. And that's just the easier one. The ones that could make it probably will even be much more better to the venture capitalists and the acceleration programs, because all they want to do is to 10x your business, making sure that within the 3 years that they take your business under their wing, you can be able to sell for 10 times the value that they had initially started with. So if we make more businesses lucrative to uh, alternative funding, which is coming from private wealth or private companies that raise funds, we are now generating even more value for these people. of which their value will be going through for these companies that are venture capitalists and angel investors and all of those. We're creating more values for them, and the value will also be tickling up or down to the SMMEs themselves. So yes, the startup cost will be too much after we set up this whole financing structure, but as soon as more people are hired by the financing vehicle, which will be like Bombela in this case, operating the Gautrain, more value will be created for SMMEs because there'll be more people that can digitalize for lower cost with higher skills, and can be able to make probably 40% of businesses success rate compared to the current 10% in the first year. More people will be attractive to you know venture capitalists than them for equity selling. And the recommendation of Presidential Commission and 4IR will be in full swing because now we'll be taking care of 4IR itself. Kind of messy, 5 points going all around. I hope that just clears up that the digitalization of small businesses is not an overnight project. It's going to take many years. And it's most importantly, it's going to take a lot of muscle, a lot of people being involved to make sure that all of these things come together. But thus far, we can only do what we could do. Spread the love. If you like this podcast, please spread the love to somebody else. Empower them. Let them have their comments. Let them um, be enriched in knowing what's possible. If they're a small business owner, at least they'll be encouraged that their business might not just go under very soon. Digitalization through e-commerce and operational efficiency might just be around the corner.